And I want to highlight something that doesn't often get talked about when it comes to data integrity as well. In large part, a lot of people interpret data integrity to be unclean, wrong data, like there's gaps in it. And that's absolutely true. But the other form of data integrity that people don't visualize so much in their minds is the process-driven data integrity, where if you have the option, let's use the medical as the example. If you have adult, pediatric for kids and neonatal and other such buckets, then if you have a bucket that says other and there's people that just select other for everything, that's not bad data. It's just not helpful. And therefore you can do the analysis on those other fields and suppress or sort of say other in those scenarios, but data integrity due to ambiguity as well. And that's a key part of the conversation that doesn't come up when it comes to the cleanliness of data and the usefulness of data as well. Just because every field is populated doesn't mean that every field is actually useful, and therefore you actually getting the right message.
Welcome to the Conversations on Applied AI podcast, where Justin Grammens and the team at Emerging Technologies North talk with experts in the fields of artificial intelligence and deep learning. In each episode, we cut through the hype and dive into how these technologies are being applied to real-world problems today. We hope that you find this episode educational and applicable to your industry, and connect with us to learn more about our organization at AppliedAI.mn. Enjoy.
Welcome, everyone, to the Conversations on Applied AI podcast. Today, we're speaking with George Bryant, a partner of Fulton Analytics. Fulton Analytics is a Minnesota-based data analytics, strategy, and consulting company committed to delivering data success. Their data success framework aligns people, process, and technology towards agile data transformation. George has a passion for soccer as well, being a head coach for a number of teams around the Twin Cities. Thanks, George, for being on the program today.
Hey, welcome.
Awesome. Good. I gave a little bit of an intro on where you're at today with regards to being a partner at Fulton, but a lot of our listeners are kind of curious on what was your background, when you got out of college or whatever, maybe what was the path to get you to where you are today?
Oh, mine's a little more bizarre than some, I won't lie. So when I came out of school in this terms was back in England. So Our system is slightly different. There's less reliance on various forms of education. But basically, so I came out at 18. And so what a lot of people do, they go to university, they go to college, they do all those things. I did not do that. I actually went down the path of working full time, just because growing up, I was very good at school. I just wasn't very good at doing school. So one thing that sort of came out of that was I'm much better at doing just hands-on learning and going out and doing that. And so that's kind of where I started. And I think as with most people in the data world, I kind of accidentally found it, or it found me, whichever way you want to put it, both are good. So to get to where I am today, ultimately I went through a journey of I was working full time. I think I was doing 60 plus hours a week quite comfortably, and I was happy doing it. I had no problem. But then because I was younger, I kind of thought to myself, well, if I'm going to do that, then let's do something interesting with my life first. So I packed my bags. I moved to China for 3 years. And then that's where I met an American lady, came over here, and then started doubling down in that data world, because that's kind of the job I fell into, and got pulled over into the data analytics environment and started just doubling down and working all the way through. And now I'm here running a consulting firm, as you introduced, Fulton, and having loads of fun doing it.
That's excellent. As you were talking about just working a lot of hours, there's this concept of to get mastery, you have to hit 10,000 hours. Do you think you've hit your 10,000 hours already?
Oh, if I haven't, then, I've not been doing it right. But quite frankly, I think I must be well beyond that at this point, to be honest.
Well, good. Were you always sort of interested in data and analytics and stuff like that growing up? Or was it something that maybe did a switch just sort of flip one day?
I think it's always been there. When I do some of that self-analysis I hear is so good for you, I look back at my childhood and think, well, I was creating graphs out of ridiculous things, like the coins I had, or little competition I had with these little toys where they would have to try and, get themselves into a certain position for me to judge it, and then creating graphs all the time. And even back in the day when you had them big, massive floppy disk things, not the square blue ones, the really big ones that are made of not floppier than anything. And creating a program with those, just doing some visuals and then seeing variables and understanding subconsciously what to do with them to change color, to change size. And so I think it's always kind of been there. But then as I did move into adulthood and started doing some of that work, it just sort of naturally picked itself up. So when working in a shop, I'll be the one looking at the report saying, well, we should move that because it's doing better and it will do better there and it's nationally higher sales, but we're not utilizing. And just sort of doing my own analysis on things without ever realizing it was truly what I was doing.
Yeah, cool. I mean, is there any type of market segment that you like to focus on at either at Fulton or, with regards to your own personal passions?
We're industry agnostic. We really go with all the industries because everyone needs analytics and everyone needs various forms of data consistency and integrity and anything that goes beyond that. So when it does come to the answers of those questions, they're generally a lot more personal. I think when it came to learning some of the tools that are out there, working with a data set that you have a passion for or are familiar with is definitely the best way to learn something. So in my case, that was soccer, as you referenced at the beginning. I ended up creating a full historic to current day complete ecosystem dashboard of stadium and everything for West Ham United, which is the team who I followed back in England. And it spanned back 120 years, and it really helped me understand the tools that I was working with at that time, which I think at that point it was Power BI. So there's a whole lot of learning I did with that data set. But these days, I generally find myself really enjoying the emergency medical sort of air ambulance industry. Through a lot of luck, just like anything else, we got into one company that, when you go into a company and you're getting your insight, you're getting your learning and all those different things, and you're getting some great outcomes. And there's some pride in that. But when your outcomes are, we genuinely contributed to saving 3-4 minutes on emergency medical things, those outcomes are literally lives in some cases. And so we've been told examples where some of the things we've created have genuinely done that. And so when that's the outcome that comes from something, you're just much more likely to just gravitate towards something like that. I mean, that's much more satisfying than saving X insurance company a large sum of money, which is still nice, but nothing compared to something like that. So I've really doubled down in that industry in recent months.
That's phenomenal. No, yeah, I totally know what you mean. It's kind of using technology to make this world a better place rather than, saving millions for millionaires, I guess, in some ways. So there's definitely an altruistic value in that, and I can absolutely empathize with that type of work. So what is the day in the life of a person like you that you're at this startup, I guess? Would you guys still consider yourself a startup, small company?
Well, we're definitely a smaller company. Yeah, we're not one of these larger corporate sort of ones, and it's still run by Robert Gerrards, my business partner, and myself. We do have one other person in the leadership now, just because you do get to a point where you can't handle everything and do it well. But we're still a small company in that regard. But a day in the life for someone like me in particular is probably different to the employees. But so what I generally do is I spend my time supporting our employees. And at this point, we have 20 plus. And a large amount of my time goes to pre-sales and architecture conversations and everything in between those ecosystems and what all that entails. I'm lucky in that there are still some of the ways that I get to train people is by going onto projects with some more junior people and actually doing the development still. So I stay in touch with my development skills. I still get to do the thing I ultimately enjoy, but I also get the enjoyment of starting something up and passing it on and allowing that knowledge to keep going through. So one thing that kind of occurred to me as part of that in recent months, and the risk of sounding potentially the wrong way in terms of arrogance, but what I have discovered is over the last 4 years, by doing that process, so much of what happens at Fulton is in some part an image of how I perceive the world in regards to data preparation and data movement and analytics. Just because, when you're the one training the majority of people and they start picking up your concepts and the way that you do things, because through experience you've discovered that stuff, it's really kind of very nice. And of course, it is a blanket statement. It's not always as simple as that, but I get a lot of fulfillment by going through that process. It's a lot of fun.
That's exciting. We bring in junior engineers here too. I guess I hate to use the word junior, but I guess people that are just out of school, for example, and they haven't seen a lot of the things that somebody who has been doing this for 20-some years has. And one of the things that I think about is somebody took a chance on me.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Back in the late 90s, I was starting to develop software for the internet, and I didn't know jack, man. Most people didn't know jack. We were all sort of figuring it out. But a lot of people over the course of my career, I've been really lucky to have some people put me under their wing and be like, no, this is how you really work on this stuff. So you probably feel that sense a little bit now of being able to give back. guessing you maybe had somebody to help mentor you along the way.
Oh, 100%. And they are the people I remember. Even when I was back in England, my manager back there was this Irish guy called Colin Mooney. Most stereotypical name, I think, for an Irish person in the world.
Yes.
But he was from Dublin, and I don't know, he just saw something in me. And so whenever he moved company, he'll bring me with him. I was, of course, all about that, and that was fine. And so he knew what I was about. I knew what he was about. I could roll in and be comfortable and help set the stage for things. And the other example of that is, in America, when at some point I worked at Ameriprise when I first arrived in America. And for context, I've been here, I think I worked it out the other day, to be just over 13 years now. So it's been quite a long time. But back then, one of the things that I was actually hired to do as my first job in America was literally just moving stocks and equities between accounts. Nothing too exciting, not too far above data entry, but still something quite fulfilling as well. But the reason I got found out and moved to IT in that scenario is because I discovered that there was a toolbar that you could use, which was just sort of some custom code that would literally scrape and move things around. So I used that. And so when they come and plucked me up, I thought I was in trouble, to be quite honest. And they said, no, you're in the wrong department. You're coming with me. And they dragged me over. And that was truly where I got into the data analytics space and started down on that. So you're right. It's literally just one or two people. And I don't know what what our employees' interpretation of me are, but there's definitely a couple that I really have. All of them I put a lot of time into, and I hope that they're successful with the foundation that I can give them.
That's excellent. No, cool. Very, very good. I know I love stories of giving back. And, you're talking about data. What are some challenges, I guess, that you're seeing when you go into organizations just generally, I guess, with regards to companies saying, I want to improve X or improve Y, or like you say, with some of this, emergency medical stuff, like what are the challenges, I guess?
Every company is different. So one thing I do have the benefit of is in my position where I'm on a lot of the pre-sales. Where I'm not an account manager by any means, but I have oversight on a lot of different technical projects going on at any given time. So over the last few years, it means I get a very large bandwidth as to the types of things that come up. And I think it really comes down to anything. I think the projects that go well, it doesn't necessarily matter what the technology is. It doesn't necessarily matter what the issues with the data are. You can work them out because you can work with them. If they're engaged and they're good, then everything will work itself out. Even if that conclusion is we're not quite the right fit and that we're not quite in the direction that they want to go in, that's an okay conclusion, and people don't always recognize that. In fact, we've had a project fail not in regards to what we delivered was bad. It was a failure in regards to, well, we thought we had this in place, but we didn't. But we even got the feedback of, I'm so surprised this didn't work out, but we're still happy because of this process that we went through with you in order to discover these things that we didn't know before. That's not a bad thing. But when things are tougher, it does come down to, the flexibility of people to learn, the flexibility of people to understand and listen, and pretty much the same life things. So if you have the empathy to understand what's happening and the ability to work with people to say, okay, well, there is an issue here. Let's work together to do that and co-collaborate. That's really where the success comes. And so inevitably, not everybody is built in the same way. From a data perspective, I do want to switch back to a very much more data perspective side. So 100%, the largest piece of dialogue, people come to us and they say, we want this kind of reporting. We want the ability to do the machine learning, the AI, all of these advanced features that, and frankly, 9 times out of 10, the dialogue is, the data is nowhere near ready for that. We have a lot of work to do first. And it's having people understand that if you try and ask questions of a data set and the data set isn't prepared for that, then you're going to get false positives. That data cleanliness is going to make a difference to the outcomes of what it is that you're trying to apply it to. And so as a result, sometimes the tougher conversations are, we can get you there, but you do have to walk before you can get there. So ultimately, I think the answer probably, to paraphrase, is probably data integrity and understanding how that data can be cleaned up. And I want to highlight something that doesn't often get talked about when it comes to data integrity as well. In large part, a lot of people interpret data integrity to be unclean, wrong data, like there's gaps in it. And that's absolutely true. But the other form of data integrity that people don't visualize so much in their minds is the process-driven data integrity, where if you have the option, let's use the medical as the example. If you have adult, pediatric for kids and neonatal and other such buckets, then if you have a bucket that says other, and there's people that just select other for everything, that's not bad data. It's just not helpful. And therefore you can do the analysis on those other fields and suppress or sort of say what other in those scenarios, but there's data integrity due to ambiguity as well. That's a key part of the conversation that doesn't come up when it comes to the cleanliness of data and the usefulness of data as well. Just because every field is populated doesn't mean that every field is actually useful and therefore you actually getting the right message. And the way that people should usually approach that is, well, what's your process? Why are you putting that? Do we not have enough buckets? Are we just ultimately just being a bit lazy and just selecting the easiest thing just to get through the process? And so that process refinement is a huge part of data integrity as part of the whole conversation.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So there's probably a lot of just human elements, right? So, and probably some user interface or user experience, but just, I guess, the soft side of it. You're right. Like, why are people doing this way? So as you said, the data isn't wrong. It's just maybe not useful. It's a great aspect to think about. Do you guys run into situations where people just don't have enough data? So you're like, look, we're going to need another 6 months to wait to kind of let us get more information as well?
Honestly, no, not often. I've never thought about that question, to be honest, but I would surmise that the majority of companies that company like Fulton to step in are ones that do have or have taken themselves as far as they can on their own, which means they inherently aren't going to just have no data available. There is some scenarios where there are new systems, but generally there's legacy data that you can apply to behind it in order to give you that history. But honestly, we don't normally come across that. And I think in the scenario where we would, of course, part of the feedback can be, well, it's just not enough data to do anything with. But that doesn't mean you can't start putting some of the groundwork in there in order to say, well, we can already see in these 1,000 rows that you have is too small a sample size. However, we can see where there are issues or where the data is going in. Maybe it's better to try and address them and fix them as part of your process now, rather than waiting for 6 months and then having that data be less useful at those points. So there's always something you can do with a data set, even if it's minimal. But genuinely, I don't think we come across that scenario particularly often.
Gotcha. I'm assuming you guys are hiring or have been hiring or like whatnot, but what are the skill sets or the tools that you guys kind of use in the trade?
I don't know. We might be one of those memes. I don't know.
Okay.
We genuinely hire for personality over technical skills, and obviously we have to identify that there's an aptitude with a consultant, and the way that consultants have to apply themselves. There does have to be an element of soft skills and personality that's inherent to that area of the industry, whereas there are in other jobs with doing the same thing, there's less reliance on that. So we've definitely not hired for that in the past, and it never goes right, frankly. Yeah. So we look for the aptitude as part of the first round, but it's the conversations with people that really tells you who they are. And if I may, I have a ridiculous example that probably shouldn't have happened, but it did. And that is pre-COVID, I had an interview with a guy and I met him at a brewery because, sometimes that's getting someone and just sitting down with them is sometimes the easiest way to understand how someone is. So at the brewery, and unbeknownst to us, they started trivia night. I don't know, maybe I was just in a mood that day, but I just sort of asked him if he wanted to do the trivia. So he said yes and just sort of went along with it. So I just went to the group of girls to our left and just said, "Can we join your team for a while?" And we did, and that was probably the most obscure interview I've ever given, or he's probably ever received. But now he's one of our longest standing employees, and he's fantastic. Because what you get from those bizarre scenarios are, his ability to just say, "Yeah, all right, let's just go with it and roll with it and see what happens." And that taught me so much more about him than sitting behind a desk and saying, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Conversation, which is a bad example, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I try and get to the nitty-gritty of who they are and what their personalities are. I think even in another example, there was a kid out of college, and I just said to him outright, "That is the most out-of-the-book response I've ever heard. Throw that away and just tell me what it is you want or what you,"
sure.
And it was just every stereotype in an answer that you could get. And I just had enough of it and just said, no, come on. I want to know you, not what you've been told to say.
a huge amount of respect for you because, yeah, people can always pick up and learn the tools. And especially in the role of a consultant, you're right. You're putting them in front of a customer. And those soft skills need to be there. And they need to understand and work with customers on a personal level. Having been in the services business here for a long time, I absolutely know what you mean. Because that can make and break your business right there if you don't have the customer first mindset.
It's something to be cognizant of at the very minimum, yeah. And there are exceptions, but that's life as well, and that's fine.
Well, we touched on soccer a little bit. Are there other hobbies, other stuff you do outside of doing data analytics?
Well, I have children.
Okay.
They're their own world, and they're just getting to the age where they do their own activities now. I'm a single father, so luckily I do have luckily, unluckily, I have them a good chunk of the time, 50%, which is not what everyone has. So on a personal level, having the ability to help with all of these things and having the flexibility of working from home to take them to all activities, that's really where my a lot of my things go. Besides that, I have been in the public speaking circuit for a little while now, for a few years. I don't think I've done much in the last 4 years for obvious reasons, or 3 years, I should say. Though I've started picking a few things back up again, and I'm just glad that people are back in person doing a lot of these conversations and starting to entertain more of the in-person element, because I always found that I feed off of a crowd a lot more than I do when I'm just doing a virtual presentation. I find the cues from people in the room on what you can get away with a lot easier to read than getting a bit silly and not being able to know whether that's appreciated or not. It's, reading the room, that kind of thing.
Cool. Well, you're going to speak at the AppliedAI Meetup here later in the spring,
in March,
is that right?
Yes.
Are you speaking anywhere else at all in 23?
So yes, there's a few places that I'm planning on speaking. So one of the things that references back to the air medical industry that I'm speaking at one of the conferences for a vendor that we work primarily with to show the capabilities of what that tool is able to do. And it's a lot more non-technical audience, which is challenging, a lot more clinical and operations based. So that's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of enjoyment around that because it's different to what I would normally do. But otherwise, I will be applying for a couple of other air medical conference orientated places. And I'm looking to get back into those SQLSaturdays that go around the country quite a lot. They're starting to pick back up again. And I'm hoping to get a little bit of traveling under my belt all over again. So that's going to be a lot of enjoyment there. So hopefully speaking a fair amount. And back to the mentorship piece with the employees, there's a couple of them that are looking to get into that circuit as well. So guiding them through their first ones, helping them come up with good presentations, that's also front and center for me. I'm really looking forward to that one because that one's not a work requirement. That one's a personal brand and hobby requirement. If they want to do that, it's up to them. And so the only people obviously involved are the ones that want to do that and are excited for it. So I'm looking forward to doing a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have liner notes with each one of our episodes, so we'll definitely put links off to some of these events and stuff. But I don't know much about SQLSaturday, and maybe some of our listeners maybe don't. Could you enlighten us a little bit about what that was or is?
Basically, the concept is that there's a whole series of conversations you can have there. You submit your presentation. It's not you don't need a certificate in order to present, but basically people present in what they're good at. For some people, that's Power BI. For some people, it's Python within whatever scenario they're in, AI, data engineering, all the way back to DBA data management and even career and sort of emotional and social economical things around the career and the workplace. So there's a few user groups essentially that run through the year, monthly usually. But then every now and then, or once a year, the majority of them turn around and say, okay, well, this is our one. We're going to do it here. We're going to have speakers from across the country come through. And those are the ones which I apply to do.
Wow.
And it's a community orientated thing. So you come across a lot of familiar faces after a while. And yeah, they're just fun. And for a company like Fulton, when it's local, when the Minnesota one happens, we get ourselves a booth and all of those things. But otherwise we use it as we try and take it less seriously and just sort of go around and build up our personal brands on there to be the experts at what it is that we, in the category of things that we fall into.
Sure. And so I'm assuming then these events, like you say, they happen around the country, various months, and they happen on a Saturday?
They do.
Okay.
That's the winner.
And you have to know SQL to do this, or not really?
No, you don't have to know SQL. Like I said, Power BI, all the different things. Whenever I do it, I think it's different every time. I try and keep myself entertained. What have I been doing recently? So I think the latest one I did was sort of like master data management in the absence of spending $100,000 on master data management. Little hacks and tricks that you can do to win things, but it's really kind of broad on the amount of topics that you can apply yourself to.
That's cool. Yeah, like I say, we'll for sure put some links to that organization. Do you have a Minnesota date yet this next year, or?
There is. They're actually, their one is in December. They're virtual, so I'm not going to be doing that one personally. The next one I have there's one in Atlanta that should be happening beginning of next year that I'm hoping to get accepted for. I have one in April, which will be the Flight Vector Conference, which is very niche and probably not for everyone unless you're in air medical. But there's a handful of other ones. I spoke in Tampa a couple of weeks ago for AMTC, which is the Air Medical Transport Community sort of yearly event where it's more executive level and with all of those kinds of things. So as for what's going to come the next year for the SQL Saturdays, the only one I'm aware of so far is Atlanta. So at the moment, it's only Atlanta. So we'll see what happens.
The whole reason I've sort of started the Applied AI group was I just love getting people together, right? And it's just a fun way to learn from each other and network. And it's always like a 1 + 1 = 3 type thing where there's just so much benefit. We're actually looking to do some more hands-on workshop-y type stuff. So while we have these monthly meetups that really span the gamut, from people talking about does AI have sense and feelings into it? We had a guy some months ago that was really talking about what's going to happen once AI surpasses human comprehension, all that type of stuff, to something that's much more hands-on, which is awesome. And so we really try and keep the group like really wide open. But I'm looking to do some weekend events where it's a little bit more of come in, here's some data set, and here's some stuff that people can play around with. Because there's just a lot of people that are just enthusiastic about it, but they don't even know where to start.
Oh, that's very true. And so back to the advice of just pick up a data set that you know, something that you understand. In my case, it was soccer. It could be anything for anyone. Football and baseball are always good examples for people that are into those sports too. It doesn't have to be sport by all means, but just getting those. I have a sustainability one just because that's quite interesting to me. You're asking the questions you want to know. So therefore, it's easier to work with than, I've got some finance stuff. Oh, look, it goes up and down, Yeah.
And unless you're a bean counter or whatever, you probably won't care about it as much. So like you say, as long as you scratch your own itch, definitely something you're going to be working on nights and weekends. How do people reach out to you? LinkedIn a good place?
LinkedIn's a great place. I'm assuming you probably got the URL for that one too, but that's definitely something that I have the ability to and desire to go into and see a lot more than other places. I am on Twitter as well, though my LinkedIn is connected to it. And if I even remembered what my Twitter handle was, that would be amazing. But ultimately, it's the email address, george.bryant@fultonanalytics.com, analytics.com. Those are the primary ways.
Good deal. Is there any other topics or things that that I didn't cover that you maybe wanted to touch on?
I think the other one was, I wouldn't mind going into one of the presentations that I was going to do at SQL Saturday Chicago. Actually got cancelled. But one of the things, because I have quite a large advocacy around behavioral stuff, just because I was diagnosed as adult ADHD probably only about 4 or 5 years ago. And I think in the retrospect of looking back at how I was and how a lot of people in the industry view and the stereotypes around ADHD in particular, but it's not the only one. There's anxiety, ADHD, and a lot of the behavioral elements. There's definitely become a lot more recognized in the COVID era. There's no doubt that has been a benefit in regards to that, because I think people are a lot more cognizant of what those things mean and the mental health conversation that comes with them. But to give my example, honestly, on a more human element, it did take me, it was only about 2 years ago, I could actually start having a conversation about this stuff without just feeling like I was going to burst into tears in any moment, just because it's a very stressful thing. So I kind of wanted to share a story of around that. And I think it may shed some light as to how other people have felt during the pandemic, in particular, when everyone was locked down, and just to see if there's anything that other people sort of, to create an openness so that people do feel like it's okay to talk about this stuff without putting I think there's definitely avenue where that isn't still a bit of a stigma. So if you're willing to humor me, I wouldn't mind just telling that story briefly.
Please.
Even when it came to the education, I was absolutely fine at school. I was not very good at the applied side, at the homework part, because that ultimately was where I just couldn't get that focus. So that was back in school. And so it's dictated a large part of my life. And when I look back on retroactively, those periods of or am I just lazy? And, always sort of why am I like this sort of things kind of got answered when I got that diagnosis. But what really came out was, what really triggered getting that diagnosis was before the pandemic happened, I was at a company out of Kentucky. So therefore, because I live in Minnesota, it was 100% remote. And over those 8 months, I think I broke down to completely just the most dysfunctional human. I couldn't focus on a thing. I couldn't get anything done. And it was genuinely, I didn't even know why they had me around because I was pretty much useless. But it didn't matter how hard I tried, I couldn't do it. It was a big struggle. And so inevitably, when you get to that point, you start questioning yourself of, well, God, what am I? This is terrible. And so I did pursue the diagnosis, and it ended up being the best thing I could do, because even though it doesn't really make any difference, it made a large part of the conversation tangible for me to pick up and be able to deal with. So roll on to, I then get a contracting firm with at Ecolab, of all places, which was really on site every day, a huge requirement. And I just started thriving again. I was able to do my work. I was functional and I was happy. And I really got, my mojo back, my confidence back. And I was back to knowing what I was good at, what I was doing, and being able to contribute to everything that I was involved with there in a big way. And that made me really happy. So when the pandemic hit and they said, okay, everyone's got to work from home, having just come from the other experience a few months, like a year or two before, I think that hit a low point in terms of mental health, because I just knew as soon as they announced it and I read the email, I broke down there and then. I thought, I don't know how I'm going to survive this, just because of what happened to me before. But what that did do was it prepared me to be able to understand what the stresses of working from home are ahead of time, which I think in reality actually put me in a spot ahead of a lot of people, because I don't think there was many people that were actually prepared for what that meant and how that sort of came together. So through that experience, I was again able to sort of have discussions with other people, connect some people together, and not completely close myself off, and be able to, really come out of that and it was tough for a long time. But having had the diagnosis before that as well, I've now managed to work my schedule around how I work, how my brain works, when my peak times are. Should I ever be able to predict such a thing, and work around that thing. So I advocate for people to be a lot more open about these things, more so now than ever, because I think it's a lot more tangible to a lot more people. I think even now, I think there's still a lot of people struggling with the working from home, with elements of loneliness and that stuff. And not just I'm on LinkedIn and I'm trying to create memes and crap like that. And I saw too much of that. It was getting kind of annoying. But from a genuine human element, people should realize that this is a thing, and that it's a tangible thing for people to latch onto and give their best in terms of trying to, get help with those kinds of things. And understanding that from a manager looking down perspective, it also means from a management perspective, which is the larger message, just because someone is struggling doesn't mean that they're not functional and unable to do the work. But you do have to have the conversation with them. You're duty bound as a leader and a manager to understand what someone is going through in order to come up with that. And I have a brother who's Asperger's as well. So I grew up with a lot more tolerance with this kind of thing than I think a lot of the people around me through that tangible, context and experience. And so I think, when you do, even again to the interview process piece that we were discussing before, even when you reference things like that, understanding that, someone is extremely nervous or someone may not pick up on all of the audio and visual cues that other people find a lot more natural, is something that that doesn't mean they're not good for the job. And so looking beyond the surface and understanding what's happening and how someone's functioning is something that it doesn't happen quite enough. And I see it tangibly, even with people who I've discussed candidates with. So, they'll like this, I don't like them. So, well, I understand that, but did you consider this element of it? Did you understand that this was happening in their life at the time? And therefore, if that was you, would you have been any different? And having those conversations and just being open about it.
Thank you, George, for sharing that personal story. And I think, the point of this conversation and the point of this podcast is really what I want it to be. I want it to be a conversation, right? So it's not really all about us getting hardcore around artificial intelligence. It's really, I really like to bring people's stories to the forefront and think that they've run into. And I think you're right. It's a duty as a manager to understand their employees, but just even us as humans, that people aren't perfect and there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. I think that's the word that I would use, is to be vulnerable and open yourself up and say, look, this is what's going on with me. And, this is the way that I react to this. And people need to understand it. And you're not going to be perfect all the time. And man, COVID was tough. And especially for people that sit in front of a computer screen all day, people say, well, you can just pick up and do that at home. Well, yes, you can. But it's a totally different, it becomes very isolating. And my story a little bit. Yeah, no. And, and honestly, after COVID ended, it was a huge mind exercise for me not to go back down in the basement. So for me, I would, I get the kids out to school. Actually, they wouldn't go out to school. Back that up.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't going anywhere. They were basically running around the house and trying to do online learning, which is a joke. So I'm trying to deal with them. But then, the basement was my little oasis that I had in my utility room just to sort of get stuff done. But it's very lonely. And once we decided to sort of essentially come back to the office if you want, so employees don't have to come back to the office here, but if you do want to come back, and for me, I was like, I kind of want to go back to the office. I would find myself just naturally going back down into my cave, right? And it's hard to break out of that. I'm happy to say that I like a mixture of both, but when you're stuck at home all the time, it can absolutely feel like prison. At least that was a sense that
Oh, absolutely. And so now my experience is that, I thrive in my home office because I've set it up and I've got my routine now, and that really works. But there's absolutely a scenario Fulton doesn't have their own offices, but we do have clients that have offices. And so we make a point of saying that, some things are easier to achieve in person. You want to do that data validation. You want to do that testing. You want to just meet and greet and be part of a niche community that's not, necessarily yours forever. You still need those things, and they do make relationships and work and the outputs that you're creating for people better. And so it's good that we have the control and not. And so I did the other day. I thought back on, I used to drive 1 to 2 hours every day, be in the office for the whole day, and I just got to wonder, how did I survive this? I was on a client yesterday for half a day and came back just, whew, it's quite intense to do that. I just don't know how, as I look back, how we ever managed to do that. And great for the people that really thrive off it. I'm just happy for the balance these days. It's very nice. And I'm privileged enough to be in a position where I can create my own balance. And I understand not everyone's there, but that for me is what I strive for over the rest of the things that I hear people like.
Well, and back to your sharing, I think we all need to be a little bit more open that people can need to work and might have issues that we don't know about, right? So don't be so quick to judge people on how they work or what they're doing, because in certain scenarios, you don't understand.
It's a big topic, and on the flip side of it, I never say these things in regards to, you can still be struggling and not make it, how to phrase it. I'll articulate this hopefully correctly and not come across like a butthead. So, I have my struggles. I have the things that I work with, but I still have to work to create the environment for myself, for me to thrive in. It's not an excuse or a crutch to lean on. It's something that you have to acknowledge and work towards. That doesn't mean it's always going to be successful. And that's where management and leadership say, okay, well, use your time to create the environment for yourself. But, that doesn't mean we all have a crutch to lean on whenever it's like not going quite our way. So I think that, that's the argument that a lot of people have with those things. And I think that with balance, with everything, there's a balance, and that's a tangible thing as well. And I think it's fair to have both sides of that.
For sure. Well, great, George. We talked about a lot today. Lots of interesting stuff, and I appreciate you, spending close to 45 minutes here with us, going through all of this stuff. It's fascinating. I think the one thing that I would say is through everything that you've gone through, from coming from another country in China and moving to Minnesota. I have a huge amount of respect for you for going out on a limb and starting your own company. Right? Being an entrepreneur, finding something you're passionate about and building a business around it. Not many people do that. And so I think you should be proud of what you've built. And, I guess a lot of people are fearful of potentially coming up short. And kind of what you said in your last comment there is it's something that you just work on and improving.
It's a risk. But if, for context, I have tried a company before this, a sports analytics company called Finbar Goes East. I think I still have the trademark somewhere, international trademark. Apparently I was very confident in myself. But yeah, it failed. But then you do learn from that. But I had the advantage of being able to work full time whilst doing that on the side. So it was quite intensive. But I mean, if you're able to make those decisions, do this kind of thing, then that's excellent. If not, then, there is a risk involved, and it's just down to you to sort of either take that leap. But whatever, if you're going to take the leap, you're just going to make sure you thought it through. That's the only advice anyone can ever give. Just, you can't just say, just go ahead and do it. Yeah, but go ahead and jump off of a curb without looking? No. Do your plan and do your due diligence. And at some point, you just got to say, all right, I'm ready. Or I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Either way.
Well, in the world of data, make sure you have as much data as you can before you actually make that leap, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, that's why not? Let's do it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, great, George. Again, I appreciate the time, and look forward to having you at our Applied AI Meetup here in the coming months, and look forward to keeping in touch. So thanks again.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Thank you for your time.
You've listened to another episode of the Conversations on Applied AI podcast. We hope you are eager to learn more about applying artificial intelligence and deep learning within your organization. You can visit us at AppliedAI.mn to keep up to date on our events and connect with our amazing community. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Justin at AppliedAI.mn if you are interested in participating in a future episode. Thank you for listening.